After a discussion, my children abandoned me 1,651 kilometers from home on the road, but the next morning they were begging for my help, so I decided to do something they never imagined. The first blow was the silence, a silence so vast and abrupt that it seemed to absorb all the sounds in the world. It wasn't the peaceful silence of dawn in the countryside, the kind that cradles you with the whisper of insects and the distant rustling of leaves. No, this was a heavy, dense, violent silence. The roar of the old Renault Scénic's engine that had been the soundtrack for the last 12 hours suddenly cut out, leaving a phantom buzz in my ears. And then, the second blow, the click of all 4 door locks engaging in unison. A metallic, definitive sound that resonated in the hollow of my gut like a door slamming shut. "Guys, is it broken?" The sentence got stuck half-formed, hanging foolishly in the car's stale air. My eyes, tired from staring at the endless ribbon of asphalt, illuminated by the headlights, adjusted to the gloom. The road was dark, only the dim light of stars, and a waning moon bathed the profile of pines that rose like specters on both sides. There wasn't a single house light, not a sign, nothing, just us, stopped on the shoulder of a secondary road, whose name I no longer even remembered. I turned my head toward the passenger seat. Daniel, my eldest son, 22 years old, wasn't looking at me. His profile, so similar to his father's in the good years, was carved in stone. He breathed deeply, with a determination that chilled the blood in my veins. In the back seat, Laura, 19, had her head down, compulsively playing with her bangs, a childhood habit that reappeared in moments of crisis. Her shoulders, thin under the thin corduroy jacket, trembled slightly. "Daniel, what's wrong? Why are we stopping here?" My voice sounded weak, a shadow of what it was, loaded with a confusion that was beginning to tinge with panic. He didn't respond immediately. He pulled his cell phone from his jeans pocket and consulted it with a calmness that seemed obscene to me. The screen's light illuminated his hard features, his eyes that avoided mine. "This is a good place," he finally said. His voice was flat, devoid of all inflection. It wasn't the voice of the child to whom I read stories until he fell asleep, nor that of the teenager who confessed his first heartaches to me. It was the voice of a stranger. "A good place for what, Danny?" I insisted, my hand instinctively seeking the contact of his arm. He pulled away as if my touch burned him. The gesture was so abrupt, so full of revulsion, that it left me breathless. Laura emitted a small stifled whimper in the back seat. "For this, Mom," Daniel said, and for the first time he looked at me. His eyes, the same hazel color as mine, had no warmth. They were cold wells, filled with a resentment that, although I had sensed it in recent months, had never shown itself to me so naked, so cruel. "We can't take it anymore. We can't stand you anymore." The words didn't find an immediate path to understanding in me. They bounced, absurd, in my mind. "We can't stand you anymore." What did that mean? Stand me? Their mother? The one who had fed them, dried their tears, worked to exhaustion in 2 shifts to pay for their studies after their father left us? The one who had given up everything, even the idea of being something more than a mother for them? What are you saying, son?" I stammered, feeling how glacial cold began to spread from my core to my fingers, my feet. "I don't understand." "You never understand, Mom," Laura exploded from behind, her voice a shriek loaded with tears and rage. "You're always the victim, the poor mother who gives everything for her ungrateful children. You can't see beyond your own martyrology." I turned to her, completely lost. Her face, so beautiful, was contorted by a grimace of pain and fury. "Laura, please. Martyrology? What are you talking about? Have I done something? Have I said something to you? We're on vacation. We're going home." "That's not our home," Daniel shouted, hitting the steering wheel with the palm of his hand. The sharp blow made the car shudder. "Our home went to hell when Dad left, and you turned into a shadow. We live in your museum of pain, Mom. Every plate on the table, every photo on the wall, every silence in the living room is a reminder of what we lost. And we're fed up. Fed up with dragging your sadness around. Each word was a knife, a fine, sharp knife that found places in my soul that I didn't even know existed. I breathed deeply, trying to find air in a cabin that had suddenly run out of it. The smell of coffee from the thermos, of the cookies we had nibbled hours before, suddenly seemed nauseating to me. I've given you everything I could, I managed to say, with a voice I didn't recognize, broken and tiny. After your father, after what happened, I tried. You tried to live through us, Daniel. Cut me off. His tone again glacial, controlled. Your dreams, your frustrations, your fear of loneliness. Laura and I are not your therapy, nor your life project. We have our own lives, and we don't want you in them. Not like this. We don't want you in them. The phrase settled in my center, heavy as a concrete slab. I looked at both of them, at my children, at the two people for whom I would have died without hesitating for a second, and I saw two strangers, two enemies. And what do you propose? I asked, feeling how the tears, hot and treacherous, began to blur my vision. I didn't want to cry, not in front of them, not now. Daniel breathed deeply, like a surgeon before a complicated procedure. Get out of the car. The world stopped, literally. The slight wind that caressed the pines calmed. The crickets fell silent. My heart, I think, stopped beating for a couple of seconds. Excuse me, was all I could articulate. Get out here, now, he said, with a coldness that chilled my soul. You have your phone? You have your wallet? Call a tow truck, catch a taxi, hitchhike, however you want, but this trip with us ends here. It couldn't be. It was a nightmare. It had to be. Any moment I would wake up sweating in my bed, with the sound of Laura showering and the smell of coffee that Daniel made for himself every morning. This wasn't real. Parents abandon children, not the other way around. Biology, instinct, love, everything rebelled against the idea. Daniel, for God's sake, I pleaded, the tears already breaking the dam and running free down my cheeks. This is madness. You can't do this to me. I'm your mother. Laura spoke again, her voice now lower, broken by crying, but no less firm. That's exactly why, Mom. Because you're our mother, and you should want the best for us. And the best for us is to continue without you. For a while, to breathe. Breathe? I screamed, panic turning into a ball of indignation and pain in my throat. I'm suffocating you? I've given you all the oxygen I've had. You've given us your stale air, Mom, Daniel said, opening his door. The car's interior flooded with the cold, dense night air, and we can't take it anymore. He got out of the car. He walked toward my side. I shrank into the seat, like a child about to be hit. I saw his silhouette through the glass. My first baby, the child who squeezed my finger with his little hand so small, it couldn't wrap around it completely. The teenager whom I picked up drunk one night from the park, and who cried on my shoulder, asking for forgiveness. The man who now opened my door and looked at me without an ounce of that love. Get out, he ordered. No, I clung to the seatbelt, to the seat cover, to anything. No, Daniel, don't do it, please. I'm begging you, please. We'll all regret this. We already regret not having done it sooner, he replied. And then his hand, the same one I had kissed 1,000 times, closed around my wrist with a force that hurt me. It wasn't brutal, but it was implacable. It was the force of a decision made. Let me go, Daniel, Laura, I screamed, looking back, searching in my daughter's eyes for an ember of pity, of sanity. She looked at me, crying silently, biting her lip until she drew blood, but she nodded. She nodded her head. She nodded with the complicity of her silence. Daniel unbuckled my seatbelt. He pulled me with that cold and determined strength. My strength, decimated by surprise, pain, and disbelief, was no match for his. I got out of the car almost in a jolt, staggering on the loose gravel of the shoulder. The cold night air hit my face, making my skin crawl. Your grandparents, your uncles, what will they think? I babbled, desperately searching for an argument, a burning nail to grab onto. We've written them an email. We'll explain our version, Daniel said, closing my door with a slam that resonated in the night like a gunshot. He headed back to his side of the car. My purse! My things! I screamed, seeing my purse on the passenger floor. He took it, opened the zipper, pulled out my wallet and my phone, and threw them at me. They fell at my feet, in the dust. The gesture was so humiliating that it left me speechless. He put the purse back in the car and closed his door. He sat down. He started the engine. The roar was thunderous after that deathly silence. The lights came on, blinding me. I was there, standing, trembling, with my arms crossed over my chest, with tears freezing on my cheeks, watching the profile of my children behind the windshield. Daniel put it in first gear. The car began to move. Slowly, it advanced a few meters, and then it stopped. My heart leaped with insane hope. They were repenting. It was a bad joke, a cruel lesson that they would now acknowledge. The driver's window rolled down. Daniel's head appeared. I breathed deeply, preparing for his apologies, for his hug. By the way, he said, his voice cutting through the night like a knife. Check your email. We sent you something, so you understand. And then, the window went up. The car accelerated. The taillights moved away. 2 red dots that became smaller and smaller, snaked around a curve and disappeared. The silence returned. But now, it was a different silence. It was the silence of total absence, the silence of abandonment. I stood there, planted, for I don't know how long, minutes, maybe half an hour, shaking, crying silently. The world was enormous, dark and cold. I was infinitesimal, an insignificant point on a lost road, 1,651 kilometers. That figure echoed in my head. Daniel had said it before. During the trip, consulting the GPS, 1,651 kilometers left. Mom, it was the exact distance home, to what was no longer my home, to the museum of my pain. A truck passed at full speed beside me, snapping me out of my stupor. The air it displaced made me lose my balance, and I almost fell. The noise was thunderous, brutal. I instinctively crouched toward the ditch, away from the asphalt. The danger was real. I was alone, in the middle of nowhere, at night. With hands that wouldn't stop shaking, I picked up my phone and wallet from the ground. The phone had 65% battery. The coverage was weak, but there was one bar. It didn't occur to me to call the police. The shame was stronger than the fear. What was I going to say? Hello, my children, whom I raised alone, abandoned me on the road because I'm an emotional burden. The ridicule, the humiliation, burned me. I remembered Daniel's words. Check your email. With fingers numb from cold and shock, I opened the email app. There was a new message, sent an hour ago, from Daniel Hayes. Subject so you understand. I opened it. There was no text, just an attached audio file. I pressed it with my heart beating in my throat. At first, there was just a bit of static. Then Daniel's voice, but not the cold one from a few minutes ago, but a tired, emotional voice, evidently recorded in secret. Laura, you have to convince her. We can't go on like this. Since the last time, since she tried the medication thing, it's not safe anymore, for her or for us. She lives in the past. Every time I go to see my girlfriend, I feel like I'm betraying her. Every time Laura smiles, she looks at her with pity, as if she didn't have the right to be happy. She's like a shadow that follows us. We have to force a change, a shock. So she reacts, so she seeks real help. If not, I'm afraid of what might happen. For her, we have to be strong. For her. The recording cut off there. I let myself fall onto the shoulder, the wet grass soaking my jeans. The world was spinning. The last time, the medication thing? No, it wasn't like that. That had been an error, an oversight. Mixing the anxiety medication with the ibuprofen, it was an accident. I told them I was so tired I didn't notice. They didn't believe me? Did they think it was an attempt? That I wanted to? A dry, heartbreaking sob shook me. They weren't just abandoning me, they were abandoning me believing I was a potential suicide, a mental patient from whom they had to protect themselves. Their cruelty was dressed in a twisted concern, in an "it's for your own good" that was even more poisonous. The cold was now penetrating to my bones. I had to move, I had to think, but I couldn't. The pain was too great. I was a mortally wounded animal, crouched in the ditch, licking the wounds inflicted by my own offspring. I looked at the phone. The temptation to call them, to beg, to scream that they were wrong, was immense, but I didn't do it. Their words, their coldness, the recording, there was a truth there. A painful truth. I was sad. I lived in the past. My pain over their father's abandonment, Mauricio, who left us for a younger woman 8 years ago, was the center of my universe, and without meaning to, I had made them prisoners of that universe. But, did I deserve this? Did I deserve to be thrown into the night like a sick dog? A car approached, reducing speed. A white van, dirty with mud. It stopped a few meters ahead. My survival instinct overcame paralysis. I jumped to my feet, my heart ramming my ribs. The fear of abandonment was replaced by a more primitive, more immediate fear. The passenger window rolled down. A man about 50 years old, with a trucker cap and several days' beard, poked his head out. "Are you all right, ma'am? Do you need help?" His voice was rough, but didn't seem hostile. I must have been a pathetic spectacle. A 48-year-old woman, tearful, trembling with cold and fear, alone on a road in the early hours of the morning. I stammered, unable to articulate a word. "Did your car break down? Did they leave you here?" he asked, with a perceptiveness that surprised me. I nodded, unable to speak. It was easier than explaining the truth. "It's no place for a woman alone. Get in. I'll take you to the next gas station. There's a bar that's open all night. You can call from there." I hesitated. Everything my mother had taught me about not getting in with strangers screamed in my head. But what alternative did I have? Die of cold or get run over? I nodded again, picked up my things from the ground and walked to the van with numb legs. I opened the door and got in. The interior smelled of strong tobacco and rancid coffee. The seat was worn and dirty. The man looked at me with curiosity, but didn't ask questions. He put it in gear, and we started off. "My name is Eusebio," he said after a while of silence, broken only by the engine's hum. "I transport chickens. I smell a bit like a henhouse. Sorry." "Elena," I murmured, looking out the window at how the absolute blackness was beginning to break with some distant light. "Thank you. Don't mention it. Sometimes the road gets ugly. You have to lend a hand." The simplicity of his gesture, the basic human warmth after the deepest betrayal, made a new wave of tears blur my vision. I turned my head toward the window so he wouldn't see them. In 10 minutes we arrived at a gas station illuminated by neon lights that seemed to want to defy the night. It was an oasis of vulgar and necessary civilization. Eusebio stopped in front of the attached bar. "Here you are. They have a phone. You can call a taxi or call a family member." "Thank you," I repeated, getting out of the van. "Do I owe you anything?" "No, woman. Not at all. Save the money for tomorrow's coffee. And next time, choose your friends better," he said with a half smile before closing the door and leaving. I was alone again, but now under artificial light, with the hum of drink refrigerators and the smell of gasoline. I entered the bar. It was a small place, with 2 formica tables and a bar with high stools. A man in an apron was washing a coffee maker. He looked at me with disinterest. "Good evening," I said, my voice still trembling. "Good evening. Coffee?" he asked. "Yes, please. Do you have a charger?" I asked, seeing that my battery was now at 62%. He nodded toward an outlet in the wall. I sat on a stool, connected the phone and waited for the man to serve me a black, thick coffee that smelled burnt. I embraced it with both hands, seeking its warmth. The first sip burned my tongue, but comforted me. It was something real, tangible, in the midst of the emotional maelstrom. And now what? Who did I call? My parents? Elderly, with their own ailments. Should I drop this bomb on them in the middle of the night? My sister? She lived in another province. A taxi to travel 1,651 kilometers? It would cost a fortune I didn't have. Hopelessness began to suffocate me again. I had no plan. I had no money. I had no strength. I only had unbearable pain and the recording of my son's voice playing on loop in my head. So she reacts. So she seeks real help. Was that it? A brutal lesson? Shock therapy? Rage began to grow, slow but unstoppable, warming my interior more than the coffee. Who did they think they were? My therapists? My judges? My executioners? I took out my phone. The battery was at 65% again. I opened the messaging app. I had dozens of WhatsApps from our family group, the Hernandez family, with photos from the vacation, from the landscapes we had visited, from dinners. Everything was false. A farce. The reconciliation trip I had proposed, and which they had accepted with fake smiles, was only the prelude to this abandonment. Without thinking, moved by an impulse of rage and pain, I wrote a message in the group. Are you happy? Have you managed to make your mother react? I hope you arrived safely. I'm at a gas station, safe. Don't worry, don't lose any sleep over it. I sent it. Immediately, 2 blue check marks appeared, red, but there was no response. Not a where are you, not a sorry, nothing. The silence was even more eloquent. My message, loaded with sarcasm and pain, had crashed against a wall of indifference. The barman turned off the coffee maker. I'm closing in 5 minutes, he announced. Panic returned. Closing? But what about me? You can wait outside. The parking lot is public, or you can call someone. Is there a hotel nearby? Anything? The closest one is 30 kilometers away, toward the capital. 30 kilometers. Impossible. I had no car. I had no money for such a long taxi ride. Okay, I murmured, feeling how tears were pressing behind my eyes again. Thank you. I paid for the coffee with the cash I had in my wallet, disconnected the phone and went out into the cold night again. The man locked the bar door and, without looking at me, left in a car that was parked next to it. I was alone in the gas station parking lot again, illuminated by the buzzing neon lights. I sat on a cement curb, hugged my knees and started to cry. I cried for my children. I cried for the love I thought united us. I cried for the woman I had become, a woman so broken that her own children had decided to get rid of her. I cried for Mauricio, for the man whose abandonment had started this chain of pain. I cried until I had no more tears. Extreme tiredness, emotional exhaustion began to overcome cold and fear. My eyelids were heavy. I knew I couldn't sleep there, exposed, but my body didn't respond. I curled up as best I could, resting my back against the cold wall of the gas station, and closed my eyes, not to sleep, but to stop existing, even if only for a few minutes. I don't know how much time passed. Maybe an hour, maybe less. The sound of my phone, vibrating and ringing with the standard ringtone, pulled me out of my lethargy. I opened my eyes, disoriented. The screen shone brightly in the darkness. Daniel Hernandez, mobile. My heart accelerated. Were they repenting? Was that it? Had they reconsidered? Part of me, the maternal part, the stupid part, that would never stop loving them, was happy. Another part, the newly wounded one, was on guard. I answered. I didn't say hello. I just breathed. On the other side, there was no silence. There was crying, convulsive, desperate crying. My daughter Laura's crying. The sound made my skin crawl. It was authentic. It was the crying of her childhood, the one when she really got hurt. Mom? She screamed between sobs that barely let her breathe. Mom, please. Laura? What's wrong? What's happening? I asked, sitting up, all my maternal alert activating despite everything. Fear for them overcame fear for myself. Mom, we need you to come. We need your help. Please, Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Her voice broke into a heartbreaking moan. Where are you? Has something happened to you? An accident? I asked, standing now, my heart ramming my chest. No, it's not that, she cried. It's Dad. The word paralyzed me. Dad, Mauricio. What's wrong with your father? I asked, with a terrible cold running down my back. He's here, Mom, at home, and there are police everywhere, she screamed, hysterical. And they won't let us leave, and they're asking about you. They say they need to talk to you. Please, Mom, you have to come. You have to help us. I'm sorry about before, I swear, but please, come. We don't know what to do. Her voice was cut off, drowned by sobs, and what sounded like a commotion in the background, male voices, deep. Police? I stood there, in the middle of the deserted gas station, with the phone stuck to my ear, with the cold night surrounding me. The image was surreal. Hours ago, my children abandoned me on a road. Now they were begging me to come back. Not for them, but for the man who had destroyed our lives. The irony was so bitter, I could have spit bile. Laura, I said, with a calmness I didn't even expect from myself. A calmness born from the total exhaustion of all my emotions. What has your father done? There was silence, just her ragged breathing, and then her voice, a terrified whisper, loaded with a secret so enormous that upon revealing it, made the world stop for the second time that night. Mom, they think Dad had something to do with the disappearance of that girl, the one they were talking about in the news, the journalism student, and they found things, in the storage room, things, yours. The ground opened under my feet. The journalism student, all the media had been talking about it for weeks. A 23-year-old girl, disappeared after a party at the university. Mauricio, and my things. What things, Laura? I asked, but my voice was no longer mine. It was the whisper of a ghost. Your handkerchiefs, the one Grandma gave you, the one with blue flowers, and the earring, Mom, the pearl one, the one you lost last summer when you went to see him to work things out. The air escaped from my lungs. The earring? The pearl one? My mother gave it to me on my wedding day. I had missed it months ago. I thought it had fallen on the street. Was it in Mauricio's storage room, along with my mother's handkerchief, and related to that girl's disappearance? The revelation was so brutal, so monstrous that my mind refused to process it. I saw Mauricio's image, his easy smile, his perfect lies, his ability to manipulate, to hide. Was he capable of that? Was he capable of hurting a young girl? And why the hell did he have my things there? My daughter's words, her cry of real panic, the commotion in the background, everything painted a picture of a nightmare much bigger than mine. Mom, please, Laura begged, her voice now barely a thread. Come home, help us. You're our mother, please. And then, the call was cut off. I stood there, motionless, with the buzz of the dead line in my ear. The coldness of the night was no longer external. It was internal. It had entered me and settled in the center of my being. My children had abandoned me 1,651 kilometers from home, but the next morning they were begging for my help. And then I decided. I looked at the road that disappeared into darkness, in the direction of home, of my past, of a terrible secret that wrapped around the man I once loved, and that now wrapped my things, my history, in a criminal investigation. I decided I wasn't going to run, I wasn't going to beg, I wasn't going to be the mother who rushes to clean up her children's mess, nor the submissive wife who runs to protect the man who destroyed her. With terrifying tranquility, I looked down at my phone. The battery was now at 58%. I opened the messaging app again. I went back to the family group, the Hernandez family. And then, with fingers that didn't tremble, I wrote my answer. The only possible answer. I can't right now. I'm 1,651 kilometers away. Handle it yourselves. My thumb hovered over the send button. The hum of the neon lights was the only sound in the universe. In the screen's reflection, I saw my face, pale, marked by dry tears, but with a cold and new determination in my eyes. And I sent it. If you're enjoying this story, please leave me your like and comment from which part you're listening to us. The silence that followed sending the message was different from all those I had experienced before. It wasn't the silence of abandonment, nor of fear, nor of shock. It was an active silence, charged, a void that I myself had chosen to create, a deliberate cut in the umbilical cord that apparently only I felt pulling. The hum of the gas station's neon lights became the heartbeat of this new silence. My breathing, which had been choppy and anxious, slowly paced itself until it became deep and cold, like the night air that surrounded me. The tears that had furrowed my cheeks had dried, leaving a salty tightness on my skin, a salt mask that seemed to harden my expression. I looked at the phone screen. The 2 blue check marks appeared instantly. Red, then nothing. No ellipsis indicating they were writing. No response of indignation, pleading, insult, nothing. My message, those 8 words loaded with ice I didn't know I could harbor, had fallen into a bottomless pit, or maybe it had hit so hard that it left them breathless, speechless, just like they had left me hours before. Part of me, the old Elena, the mother, writhed inside, horrified. What are you doing? It's your daughter. She's scared. There's police. It's Mauricio. The maternal panic was a visceral animal, scratching my guts, demanding that I call immediately, ask for forgiveness, run, fly, do what I had always done, respond to the first cry, clean the first scrape, calm the first storm. But another part, a new part, broken and remade with the scar still bleeding from abandonment, stood firm. It was a cold and logical entity that had taken control. That part remembered every detail. Daniel's coldness, Laura's complicity, the door slam, the silence on the road, the humiliation of picking up my wallet from the dust. That part listened to the echo of the recording. So she reacts. So she seeks real help. Well then, I was reacting. The cold was beginning to penetrate me again, getting in through my sweater sleeves, through my collar. I couldn't stay there, in the middle of nowhere. The gas station was a temporary refuge, a surreal scene under neon lights. I had to move. I had to think. I opened the Maps app on my phone. The coverage was weak, but it worked. I was at a lost point on a secondary road in Soria. The provincial capital was about 40 kilometers away. The largest city, Valladolid, more than 1,651 kilometers. The figure burned my retina. My house, my real house, was 1,651 kilometers away, and in between, an ocean of pain, secrets and unanswered questions. Your things, Laura's voice, broken by panic, resonated in my memory. The handkerchief with blue flowers, the pearl earring. A chill that had nothing to do with cold ran down my back. What the hell were my personal belongings, intimate objects with deep sentimental value, doing in Mauricio's storage room? And not only that, what linked them to a young woman's disappearance? Mauricio, the man I loved for 18 years, the father of my children, the man who one day, just like that, packed a suitcase while I was making him dinner and said, "Elena, this is over. I've been unfaithful to you. I'm leaving with her." The naturalness with which he said it, as if he were commenting on the weather, left me paralyzed. There was no drama, there were no screams, just devastating coldness. A coldness that, apparently, my children had inherited. But this was another league. This wasn't infidelity. This sounded like something dark, dangerous, criminal. My phone vibrated again in my hand. This time it wasn't a call, but a succession of WhatsApps. I looked at the screen. It was Daniel. "Mom, please, this is serious. Laura is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. The police are asking questions about you too. What the hell does that message mean? We need you to be here." I read the messages. His tone was different. The coldness had given way to urgency, to frustration. There were no more orders. There were veiled pleas. My silence, my refusal were taking effect. I was forcing them to taste their own medicine, and they found it very bitter. I didn't respond. I turned off the screen and put the phone in my pocket. I needed a plan. I needed shelter, warmth, and time to think. I walked to the road. There was no traffic at this hour. It was a county road forgotten by God and men. I remembered the trucker, Eusebio. His rough but genuine kindness. He had told me he transported chickens. Maybe, had he said where he was going? I didn't remember. A few minutes later, some headlights appeared in the distance. It was a truck, much bigger than Eusebio's van. Instinctively, I pressed myself against the ditch, my heart accelerating. The truck passed by, roaring, without reducing speed. The air trail it left in its wake made me stumble. This was madness. I couldn't stay there. I decided to walk in the opposite direction from which the trucker had brought me, toward where I intuited there might be more civilization. With each step, my thoughts spun in an infernal whirlwind. What did the police know? Why were they asking about me? Had Mauricio involved me somehow? Or was it that, by finding my things, they considered me another piece of the puzzle? The idea that they might think I had something to do with it made me nauseous. And my children, there, in the middle of that hurricane. Laura, with her emotional fragility. Daniel, with his false armor of security. They were scared, really scared, and they needed me, not to cook for them or wash their clothes, but for something much deeper, to be the anchor in the storm, to be their mother. But what about me? Who was my anchor? Who had protected me when Mauricio left? Who picked me up when I fell apart in tears night after night? Myself, always myself. And they, instead of being my comfort, had decided I was their burden. The sound of an engine made me turn around. It was another truck, but this one reduced speed. It stopped a few meters ahead. The driver's window opened. "Ma'am, the one from before, still here?" It was Eusebio. He had turned around. An immense relief, mixed with distrust, flooded me. I nodded, walking toward the van. "I thought you would have called someone, but when I passed by on my way back, I saw you there, looking like a wreck. I couldn't go on. Get in, I can't leave you here." This time I didn't hesitate. I got in. The smell of chicken and tobacco was now familiar, almost comforting. "Thank you," I said, and this time the gratitude was real, deep. "And, didn't you reach anyone?" he asked as he resumed driving. Yes, I lied. "But they can't come until morning. I need a place to spend the night." Eusebio looked at me sideways. His eyes were small, shrewd, accustomed to reading people in 10 seconds. "Look," he said after a while, "I'm going to Valladolid. I'll be there in an hour and a half. There's a boarding house near the station. It's cheap, and they don't ask questions. I can drop you off." Valladolid. It wasn't my home, but it was in the right direction. It was a big city. I could think there. I could breathe. "Okay," I said. "I'll pay for the gas." "That's for later," he said, lighting a cigarette. "Now close your eyes if you can. Try to rest." I couldn't rest, but I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. While the engine's hum rocked me, my mind wouldn't shut off. I reviewed every word, every gesture of the night, the abandonment, the recording, Laura's call, my message, Daniel's WhatsApps. Was I doing the right thing? Was it fair to leave them alone in the middle of such a crisis, however great my pain was, or was it unnecessary cruelty, petty revenge that only proved they were right, that I was a bitter shadow? I didn't know. I no longer knew what was right. The rules of the game had changed. The board had become much bigger and more sinister. About an hour later we entered Valladolid's outskirts. The city lights, orange and distant, came closer. Eusebio drove skillfully through streets he seemed to know well, until stopping in front of a 3-story building with a dirty facade and a neon sign that said La Terminal Boarding House. It wasn't a welcoming place. "Here it is," Eusebio said. "Ask for Rosario. Tell her Eusebio the chicken guy sent you. She'll give you a good price. Thank you, I said, looking for my wallet. How much do I owe you for the ride? He shook his head. Keep the money for tomorrow's coffee, and next time choose your friends better, he said with a half smile before closing the door and leaving. I was alone again, but now on an unknown street in an unknown city, in front of the door of a seedy boarding house. I breathed deeply and pushed the door. Inside there was a small reception with a peeling wooden counter and a smell of frying and bleach. A woman about 60 years old, with an apron and hair dyed too bright blonde, was watching a gossip show on a small television. Good evening, I said. She looked at me without much interest. Yes? I'm looking for a room. For one night. To Eusebio sent me, the chicken guy. The mention of the name made her expression change slightly. She nodded. 20 euros. In advance, shared bathroom at the end of the hall. I paid. She gave me a little key with a plastic keychain, with the number 7. Upstairs to the right. I went up the stairs. The carpet was worn and smelled of humidity. Room 7 was tiny. A single bed with a faded bedspread, a nightstand, a hook on the wall. There was no window. It was a cell, perfect for my state of mind. I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed. The stillness, the privacy, however miserable it was, finally allowed me to fall apart. The trembling I had contained for hours ran through me entirely. I hugged myself, rocking my body back and forth, as if I could comfort myself. I took out my phone. The battery was at 40%. I had several notifications, more messages from Daniel. Mom, this is fucked up. Answer. They said if you don't show up, they might issue a search warrant. A search warrant? Why? What have they found? What do you have to do with all this? His tone was increasingly accusatory, more desperate. The concern for me had disappeared, replaced by fear of consequences, by disbelief at my refusal. He wasn't asking, "Are you okay?" He was asking, "What do you have to do with this?" And then, a message from Laura, sent 5 minutes ago. Mom, I'm sorry. I swear I'm sorry. For the road thing, for everything. Please come back. Dad won't stop saying it's you, that it's all your fault. The police believe him. They're looking at Daniel and me, as if we knew something. We're scared. Please, we need you. I read the message once, twice, 3 times. The words stabbed like daggers. Dad won't stop saying it's you, that it's all your fault. Mauricio, my Mauricio, the man who had left me for another, the man who had destroyed his family, and now not content with that, he was trying to blame me for what? For that girl's disappearance? Was he capable of something so vile? The rage I felt then was so intense, so pure, that it dried my tears instantly. It burned through the fog of pain and confusion. It was a clarifying rage. He had taken my marriage from me, my stability, my joy, and now he was trying to take my freedom, my reputation, my children. He was trying to turn me into the scapegoat for his own demons. And my children, my poor idiot children, believed him, or at least they doubted, after everything he had done to them, after abandoning them for years, except to fulfill a perfunctory bi-weekly visit. They still had the temptation to believe him because he was their father, because it was easier to believe their mother was crazy, that she was a spiteful woman capable of anything, than to accept that their hero was a monster. So she reacts. Daniel's phrase from the recording resonated again, but now with a new meaning. Maybe, without knowing it, they had given me the greatest gift of all distance. The necessary distance to see Mauricio's move clearly, to not fall into his trap. No, I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to show up at that police station like an embarrassed wife, a hysterical mother, a potential suspect. I was going to force them to play by my rules. But I needed information. I needed to know what I was facing. I looked at my phone. I had to charge it. I plugged the charger I always carried in my purse into the room's only outlet. while the battery slowly climbed. I opened the browser. I searched journalism student disappearance Madrid. The screen filled with results. News from all the networks. The girl's name was Claudia Marquez. She was 23 years old. She had disappeared after a party at the university 3 weeks ago. Her photo smiled, full of life, of future. She had long brown hair and big, lively eyes. The case had shocked the country. There were no solid leads. None of the news mentioned Mauricio or me. That was good. It meant the police were working in silence without leaks. For now, what was the connection? Mauricio was an architect with a studio of some prestige. What relationship could he have with a journalism student? Was she one of his conquests? The idea turned my stomach. Mauricio always had a weakness for young women, for naive admiration. His current woman with whom he left was 25 then. Had he gone further? Had he met this girl, Claudia, and something had gone wrong? And my things, why were they there? Did he use them for? I couldn't even think about it. I called the only person I could trust. My sister Anna. It was 3 in the morning. The phone rang 4 times before a hoarse, sleepy voice answered. Hello? Elena? What's wrong? Are you okay? The concern in her voice was immediate. Anna was always the older sister, the protector. Anna, I said, and my voice sounded hoarse. Strange. I need you to listen to me and not ask questions, okay? Elena, where are you? You sound weird. Anna, please, okay? There was silence. Okay, tell me. Mauricio is in trouble. Serious trouble. The police are at his house. They found some of my things in his storage room, things I was missing, and it seems they're relating it to the disappearance of that girl, Claudia Marquez. A stifled scream on the other side. My God, Elena, what? You have to go there. You have to explain that you have nothing to do with it. No, I said, with a firmness that left her silent. I'm not going. The kids, I had to get out of the car in Soria. I'm in Valladolid, in a boarding house. That you got out of the... Elena, are you okay? Have they drugged you? What are you saying? Her voice was a mix of confusion and panic. Anna, listen to me, I insisted, containing my exasperation. Mauricio is telling the police and the kids that I'm to blame for whatever happened, and I'm not going to show up there to give him the satisfaction. I need you to do me a favor. What favor? She asked, still stunned. I need you to go to my house. Now, I have an old shoebox in my bedroom closet, on the top shelf. It's full of old letters, photos, diaries, and all the bills, emails, messages, everything I have from Mauricio from the last 2 years, since he left, especially the messages, the ugly ones. Elena, what do you want that for? For my lawyer, I lied. Just in case. Can you go? Can you take that box and keep it at your house? And don't tell anyone. No one, Anna, not even your kids. Anna breathed deeply. I could feel her conflict on the other side of the line. Elena, this scares me a lot. Are you sure you don't want me to call Dad, or should I go to the police station? No, I said, with more force than intended. Anna, please, trust me. Do me this favor. It's important. There was another long silence. Then, a resigned sigh. Okay, I'm going now. And you, what are you going to do? I don't know, I admitted, suddenly exhausted. Stay here. Think. Wait. Keep your phone on. I'll call you when I have the box. I hung up. I lay on the bed, looking at the humidity-stained ceiling. I had put the first piece of my defense in place. That box contained evidence of Mauricio's harassment when he wanted to divorce, of his veiled threats when I refused to accept a ridiculous alimony, of his lies. I didn't know if it would be useful, but it was something tangible I could control. The phone vibrated again. It was Daniel. This time, a call. I looked at it. The screen illuminated the room's darkness. Daniel Hernandez, mobile. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I decided no, that I wasn't going to always run to his call, that I had to break the cycle. I let it ring until it cut off. A minute later, it rang again, insistent. This time, it was an unknown number, a Madrid number. My heart skipped a beat. The police? A journalist? I answered, without saying anything. Elena Hernandez? A male voice, deep, professional, without a trace of emotion. Yes, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I'm Chief Inspector David Vargas, from the Provincial Homicide Brigade of Madrid. We need to talk to you, urgently. Homicides. The word resonated in the small room, enormous and terrifying. It was no longer a disappearance. It was a homicide. About what? I asked, forcing a calm I didn't feel. About the disappearance of Claudia Marquez, and about your relationship with Mauricio Castillo. Your children have informed us that you are outside Madrid. Where exactly are you? My children. They had given him my number. They had told him I was away. They had delivered me to the police without batting an eye. The betrayal was so bitter it left me breathless. Inspector, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady, I have no relationship with the disappearance of that poor girl. And as for Mauricio Castillo, we've been nothing for 8 years. That's what we need to clarify, he said, his tone imperturbable. We found some objects of yours in Mr. Castillo's possession that are of interest to the investigation. We need you to come to the station to give a statement, voluntarily. The veiled threat was there, voluntarily, or if not, involuntarily. Inspector, I'm in Valladolid, I said, improvising on the fly. For personal matters, I can't come back right now. There was a pause. I could almost hear him taking notes. Valladolid, can you give me an address? We can send a local patrol to bring you, for your own good, Mrs. Hernandez, to rule you out of the investigation as soon as possible. To rule you out, or to incriminate you. It's not necessary, I said quickly. Tomorrow morning, I'll take the first train. I'll present myself at the station. I was lying. I didn't know what I was going to do. Wait, he said, and his tone lost a bit of its professionalism, becoming more personal, almost tired. Mrs. Hernandez, I know the situation with your ex-husband is complicated, and I know your children are very upset, but this is very serious. Don't play with fire. We need you here. They need you. They need you. Those words reached me in my depths, but I no longer knew who they were, my children or the police. Tomorrow morning, Inspector, I repeated, with what little firmness I had left. I hung up before he could respond. I sat on the bed, trembling. The homicide brigade, Mauricio, my things, my children, everything was closing around me like a trap. The phone vibrated with a new message. It was from Anna. I have the box. I've seen things, Elena. Terrible messages. Why didn't you show me this before? What the hell has Mauricio been doing? Then, another message, seconds later. Elena, there's something else. There was a letter hidden under the photos. It's from Mauricio. It's recent. It's not opened. It has your name on it. A letter from Mauricio. In my house. When had he left it? How? The world was spinning faster and faster. This was no longer just about abandonment on a road. This was about a perverse chess game, and I was a pawn that refused to move as the player wanted. With hands that barely responded, I wrote back to Anna. What does the letter say? Open it. The wait was an agony of seconds that stretched like hours. The hum of the neon in the hallway, filtered through the crack under the door, was the only sound in the universe. My heart hammered against my ribs, a war drum announcing a battle I wasn't prepared for. A letter from Mauricio? In my house, hidden, it was as if the nightmare had developed its own absurd and sinister ramifications. My gaze was fixed on the phone screen, waiting for Anna's response. Every heartbeat was an eternity. What could that letter contain? More lies? Threats? A twisted confession? Or an explanation that, in some perverse way, would exonerate him and sink me even deeper? Finally, the ellipsis appeared. Anna was writing, Then a long message. Very long. It says, Elena, if you're reading this, it's because things have gone too far. And because for once, I haven't been able to control everything. I always knew you were the strongest person I've ever met. That's why I feared you. That's why I loved you. And that's why I hurt you. The thing with the girl, Claudia, it wasn't what it seems. It was a mistake, a terrible accident. She started blackmailing me. She knew about us, knew things about my business. She wanted money. We argued. She fell. I got scared, and I hid it. But I need you to know that what the police will find, your things, I didn't put them there to incriminate you. It was her, Claudia. She stole them from your house, on one of the times she went to talk to me when you weren't there. It must have been her insurance, her way of involving me, and involving you too, in case things went wrong. She's a very intelligent girl, very dangerous. Now she's dead, and I'm lost. But you don't have to be. If you're reading this, it's because the police are close. I need your help. I need you to say you were with me that night, that we went to dinner, for old time's sake. You have to do it for the kids. They don't deserve to see their father in prison for an accident, and if you don't, I have proof that your thing with the medication wasn't an accident, that it was an attempt, and that the kids knew it, and did nothing. I'll drag them down with me. All of them. You choose. You were always good at choosing. I read the message. Then I reread it. And once more, the words danced before my eyes, devoid of meaning, forming a narrative so twisted, so calculatedly diabolical, that my mind refused to accept it. It wasn't a scream that came from my throat, but a dry gasp, as if I had been hit in the stomach. The phone slipped from my numb fingers and fell onto the rough bedspread. An accident. She fell. Blackmail. Your things? She stole them. Very intelligent, very dangerous. Lie. Everything was a lie. A tangled skein of lies designed to save his own skin. Claudia, the victim, turned into the villain. He, the poor harassed man, the one with the unfortunate fall. And I had to be his alibi, his accomplice. And if I didn't accept, if I didn't lie for him, I have proof that your thing with the medication wasn't an accident, that it was an attempt, and that the kids knew it, and did nothing. I'll drag them down with me. The air ran out. The room narrowed until it became a point. No, he couldn't know that. No one knew that. Only me. That night, 8 months ago, the night of the anniversary of his departure, the desperation had been so black, so absolute, the pills in my hand, the temptation of eternal silence, it had been real, a moment of madness, a second of weakness I regretted instantly, spitting out the pills, vomiting fear and shame. No one saw it, no one knew it, or did they? Laura? Had she entered my room without me realizing? Had she seen the open bottle, my panicked expression? Had she told Daniel? And Daniel, had he told his father in one of their rare encounters? Was Mauricio using that shadow of doubt, as a weapon now? And the worst part, the threat wasn't just against me, it was against them. I'll drag them down with me. All of them. Our children, his own children. He was willing to drag them through the mud, to accuse them of failure to provide assistance, of not having helped their suicidal mother, just to force me to save him. The vileness was so monumental, it left me paralyzed. There was no bottom. There was no limit. Mauricio wasn't just a coward or a liar. He was a psychopath. The phone vibrated again on the bed. Anna? Elena? Are you there? Have you read this? My God, this is a bomb. This is a confession, but he's blackmailing you. We have to show this to the police. My instinct was to scream at her not to move, not to do anything. But my body didn't respond. I was in shock, trembling uncontrollably, tears falling soundlessly, hot and bitter. Before I could respond, another vibration. This time, a call. From the unknown Madrid number. From Inspector Vargas. I stared at it, as if it were a snake about to bite. It rang once, twice. How could he know? Was it a coincidence? Or did he have Anna under surveillance? Had they tapped her phone? Mine? The paranoia, fed by Mauricio's letter, took hold of me. Everything was possible. Everything was a trap. I let it ring. It cut off. A second later, a message from the inspector appeared on screen. Mrs. Hernandez, we have located your phone signal at La Terminal boarding house in Valladolid. We have a patrol car on the way. For your safety, I recommend you don't move and wait for our agents. It's imperative that we talk. They had located me. They knew where I was. Pure, primitive panic invaded me. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't let them take me. If they took me to the station, under pressure, with Mauricio's threat over the kids, what could I say? Would I lie to protect them? Or would I tell the truth and risk Mauricio executing his threat? No, I couldn't face that. Not yet. I needed time. I needed to think. I got up from the bed so fast I got dizzy. I grabbed the phone, yanked the charger from the wall, and put everything in my purse. I had no suitcase. I had nothing, just me and the horror of that letter. I opened my room door and peeked into the hallway. It was empty. The neon hum was deafening. I went down the stairs 2 at a time, with my heart in my throat. The receptionist, Rosario, had disappeared. The television was still on, showing mute images of a gossip show. I pushed the street door and went out into the cold Valladolid night. The humid air hit my face. I looked both ways down the deserted street. There were no police cars yet, but they could arrive at any moment. I started walking, aimlessly, fast, almost running. I turned the first corner, then another, getting into poorly lit alleys, trying to put distance between myself and the boarding house. My breathing was like a broken bellows. Where was I going? What was I doing? I hid in a doorway, crouching in the shadows, and took out my phone. I had to warn Ana. She couldn't show that letter to the police. Not yet. I wrote with trembling fingers. Ana, do not do anything. Do not show it to anyone. Hide the letter. It's my only bargaining chip. Mauricio is blackmailing me. If I talk, he threatens to destroy the kids. Where is he now? Is he still at home with the police? Ana's response came in seconds, loaded with hysteria. What? But this is madness, Elena. This is a confession. You have to give it to the police. He's incriminating you. The agents took him away. Half an hour ago, a police van came and they took him away in handcuffs. Daniel and Laura are destroyed. They're here with me at your house. The police also took all his computers and phones. My God, Elena, this is hell. Mauricio, handcuffed, taken away. The scientific police at my house. My children, with Ana. The news was both a relief and a new source of terror. He was far away, but his threat floated in the air, more real than ever. If they arrested him, if he felt cornered, he was capable of anything. Ana, listen to me, I typed, struggling to maintain sanity. He has something on me, about the pills thing, and he's going to use it against the kids if I don't help him. Until I know how to prove he's lying, I can't talk. Are the kids okay? What are they saying? Ana's scene appeared instantly. The ellipsis flickered for a long minute. Finally, her response came, calmer, but tinged with deep sadness. Laura won't stop crying. She says it's all her fault, because of the road thing. Daniel is like a block of ice. He doesn't talk, he just stares into space. The police interrogated them separately. They asked them a lot about you, Elena, about your state of mind, about whether you held a grudge against Mauricio, about whether you had threatened to hurt him. They made them doubt. You can tell, they're scared of you too. The pain was so sharp I doubled over, resting my forehead against the cold stone wall. My children, scared of me, they believed I was capable of, what? Of getting involved in the disappearance of a girl out of spite? Of setting up their father? The seed of doubt that Mauricio had planted on the road, watered by abandonment and now by police interrogation, was germinating into a monstrous plant of distrust. I had to do something. I had to break that spell. But how? By going back. By hugging them and telling them everything was going to be okay. They didn't want that. They had thrown me out. And if I came back now, I would be the suspect coming to clear her name, the unbalanced mother who needed her children to save her. No, I couldn't go back. Not yet. Suddenly, a name, an idea, emerged from the depths of my memory. Something Mauricio had said in the letter. She knew things about my business. Mauricio was an architect. He had a studio, Castillo and Associates. But there had always been rumors that his associates weren't very legal, that he moved in shady circles to get public contracts. I always refused to believe it, to believe he was capable of that, in addition to everything else. What if Claudia, the journalism student, wasn't just blackmailing him over an affair? What if she had discovered something else? Something related to his business. It was a possibility that could take me out of the spotlight. If Claudia was investigating Mauricio for something big, something corrupt, her disappearance could be related to that, and not to a supposed sentimental adventure. And my things, maybe she didn't steal them. Maybe Mauricio put them there to create a smokescreen, to direct the investigation toward a crime of passion, toward me, away from his dirty business. It was a theory, a dim light in the darkness. I needed help. I needed someone who could investigate that for me, someone I could trust, and only one person occurred to me. Sergio Valdez. Sergio was an old friend from university, from when I studied journalism before leaving it to raise the children. He had continued with his career. He was a freelance investigator, a brilliant and discreet guy, specialized in uncovering corruption. We had met for lunch a couple of years ago, and he had given me his card, telling me if I ever needed anything. I searched through my contacts. Yes. There it was, Sergio Valdez. I looked at the time, 4:17 in the morning. It was madness to call him at that hour, but I had no choice. I dialed his number. It rang 3 times before a sleepy but alert voice answered. Hello, who is this? Sergio, it's Elena Hernandez. A silence. Elena Hernandez? Mauricio? His voice cleared instantly. Clearly, he was already aware of the news. Yes, I said, my voice broken. Sergio, I need your help. It's urgent, and it's dangerous. Tell me, he said, without hesitating for a second. The solidarity of old friends, the one from before marriages and betrayals, emerged intact. I told him everything. Abbreviated, chaotic, the abandonment on the road, Laura's call, Mauricio's letter, his blackmail, the theory of dirty business, everything. He listened in silence. When I finished, there was a pause. Shit, Elena, he finally exhaled. This is heavy. I know. Can you help me? Can you investigate Mauricio, his finances, his partners, his contracts, everything that smells bad? Claudia Marcos was a journalism student. Maybe she was onto something. Yes, he said, already with the voice of a concentrated professional. I can try. I have sources. But Elena, you have to go to the police. With that letter? No, I almost screamed, lowering my voice immediately. I can't. He threatens to say I tried to commit suicide, and that the kids knew it would destroy them. I need something first, something to negotiate with, to prove he's lying. Sergio sighed. Okay, I understand. Where are you? In Valladolid, hiding. The police are looking for me. Shit. Okay, listen. Stay where you are. Don't use your main phone. Do you have money? Some. Find a cheap hotel, one of those that don't ask for ID, or a train station, places with a lot of movement. I'll call you from a private number in a few hours. And Elena, be careful. If Mauricio is involved in what I think he might be, the people he deals with don't forgive. The warning chilled my blood. What do you think he might be involved in? I don't know, but a few months ago I heard rumors that he was in deals with a construction company that has a reputation for using expeditious methods to get adjudications. Maybe your girl Claudia smelled something. I investigated. I'll let you know. He hung up. I stood there trembling in the doorway. overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I was doing. I was investigating my ex-husband for corruption and possible involvement in a disappearance. My life had become a horror movie. I walked aimlessly, finally arriving at the train station. It was an impersonal place, illuminated, with people arriving and leaving at all hours. I sat on a plastic bench, with my back against the wall, and observed people, families, backpackers, couples, normal lives that continued their course, ignorant of my nightmare. Hours passed. The sky began to clear behind the station windows. I had my main phone turned off. I only had Anna's phone on, waiting for Sergio's call. At 7:34 in the morning, the phone vibrated. Private number. Sergio? It's me, he said, his voice. He sounded tense, excited. Elena, are you sitting down? Yes, I whispered, gripping the phone tightly. I've been making calls. I woke up half the world, and I found something big. I fell silent, holding my breath. Mauricio wasn't working alone. His main partner in the last 2 years has been a construction company, Inmobiliaria Norte. It's a front. Behind it is a money laundering scheme of dubious origin, possibly narcos. The economic police have been watching them for a while, but they don't have evidence. My God, I breathed. And there's more, Sergio continued, lowering his voice. Claudia Marquez. A month ago, she applied for an internship at Mauricio's studio. She was rejected. But according to a friend from university, she was still interested in him. She said she was investigating something big for her final project, about urban corruption and money laundering. Everything fit horribly. Do you think that Mauricio? I couldn't finish the sentence. I don't know, Sergio said gravely. But if Claudia got too close to the fire, if she showed him her cards, the people Mauricio hangs out with don't mess around. An accident could be arranged very easily. It wasn't an accident. I knew it instantly. The letter was a farce. Mauricio wasn't protecting himself from blackmail. He was hiding a murder, and he was using me, once again, as his pawn. Elena, you have to go to the police now, Sergio insisted. With this, I'll give them my source. But you have to go. What about the threat against my children? I asked, terrified. It's a bluff, Elena. He has no proof. It's all he has to manipulate you. At that precise moment, another message came in on Anna's phone. It was from Daniel. I read it with eyes blurred by tears. Mom, please, answer. Dad sent us a message to Laura and me. From the station, I don't know how. He says to talk to you, to convince you to give him an alibi. He says if we don't, he'll bring to light our secret. What secret, Mom? What is he talking about? He's scaring us. Do you know something? Do you have some secret you're hiding from us? Mauricio had acted. He had thrown the bait to the kids, and they, confused and scared, were biting me. They were asking me, the suspect, the absent one, if I had a secret. The last straw, the pain, the rage, the fear, the betrayal, everything exploded inside me, in a torrent of cold and clear determination. No more. Sergio, I said, my voice suddenly firm, flat. I'm going to the police, but not here, in Madrid. I'm going back, now. Are you sure? How? I'll take the first train, I said, getting up from the bench, looking toward the platforms. And get ready, because when I arrive, I'm not going to give a statement. I paused, feeling the weight of the words I was about to say, the point of no return. I'm going to hold a press conference. The rattling of the AD train to Madrid was a metallic mantra that matched the furious beating of my heart. Through the window, the Castilian fields, bathed by the cold light of dawn, passed in a green and ochre blur. It was a world that kept spinning, indifferent to the earthquake that had shaken mine until reducing it to rubble. I gripped Anna's phone tightly in one hand, in the other, a cheap plastic folder I had just bought at the station. Inside, printed at a self-service stationery that smelled of hot toner, were the documents Sergio had sent me by email, the financial schemes of Inmobiliaria Norte, the rumors of its connection to drug trafficking, Claudia Marquez's internship application at Mauricio's studio, and her university friend's statement. They weren't irrefutable evidence for a judge, but they were enough to sow doubt, to twist the arm of the narrative that Mauricio had constructed. And then, in a separate envelope, inside the folder was the letter from Mauricio. His neat and arrogant handwriting, those poisoned words that were meant to be my salvation, and were my condemnation. I felt it burning through the paper. Sergio had tried to dissuade me over the phone. "Elena, it's madness. The police are looking for you. If you hold a press conference, they're going to be furious. They could accuse you of obstructing the investigation." "They're already accusing me of worse things, Sergio," I had replied, with a calm I didn't even recognize in myself. "I need the world to hear my version before theirs solidifies. I need my children to hear it." "And what are you going to tell them?" "The truth," I said, and hung up. The truth, that word, so simple, had become a complex and dangerous artifact. What was my truth? That of the betrayed wife? That of the abandoned mother? That of the possible suicide? Or that of the woman who refused to be the scapegoat for a murderer? At 8:47 in the morning, the train stopped at Chamartín, Madrid, my city, the scene of my past happiness and my present nightmare. I got off with a firm step, mixing with the anonymous crowd, heading to their jobs, to their normal lives. I no longer had a normal life. I was going to dynamite the foundations of what remained. I headed directly to a small hotel near Paseo de la Castellana that Sergio had recommended. I paid in cash, with the money I had left, and went up to an impersonal room. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I was pale, with deep dark circles, greasy and disheveled hair. I was wearing the same clothes from the day before, wrinkled and smelling of humidity and fear. But my eyes had a new shine, a shine of contained rage and absolute determination. At 9:30 sharp, I called Sergio. "I'm here. Is everything ready?" "Yes. I've notified 3 trusted journalists from Sirius Media. I've given them an explosive off-the-record. They're waiting at the cafe across from the hotel. It won't be a multitudinous press conference, but what you say is going to spread like wildfire. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." I lied. I wasn't sure. I was terrified, but it was the only way forward. I went down to the cafe. It was a quiet place at that hour. At a secluded table, 3 people, 2 men and a woman, with expectant expressions and notebooks in hand, watched me approach. Sergio was with them, and gave me a slight nod of encouragement. I sat down. I didn't say good morning. I breathed deeply and placed the folder on the table. "I'm Elena Hernandez," I began, my voice surprisingly clear and steady, "and I'm going to tell you a story of abandonment, manipulation, and a lie so big it could bury the truth forever." And I talked. I told them about the trip, about the door slam on the Soria Road, about my children's silence. I told them about the call for help, about the police at Mauricio's house, about the mention of my things, and then, I took out the folder. "Last night I received this," I said, holding up the envelope with the letter, a letter from my ex-husband, Mauricio Castillo. In it, he declares himself the author of the accident that caused Claudia Marquez's death. A collective gasp ran through the table. Pens began flying over notebooks. "But it's a lie," I continued, leaving the letter on the table without taking it out. "It wasn't an accident. He's trying once again to manipulate reality. He's trying to blackmail me into providing him with an alibi, threatening to destroy my children if I don't." I summarized the threat about the supposed suicide attempt. The journalists looked at me, fascinated and horrified. "Do you have proof of that blackmail?" asked the woman journalist, her voice soft but direct. "I have the letter," I said, "and I have this." I opened the folder and distributed the photocopies that Sergio had provided me. Claudia Marquez wasn't a blackmailing lover. She was a journalism student investigating Mauricio Castillo's connections to a corruption and money laundering scheme. Inmobiliaria Norte. Ask the economic police. Ask why a young woman who was sniffing around this disappears, and suddenly the investigation focuses on a crime of passion and a scorned wife. The atmosphere was electrified. I was making a very serious accusation, not only against Mauricio, but against the police investigation itself, if it was being manipulated. "Are you saying your ex-husband murdered Claudia Marquez to silence her?" asked one of the men, his voice loaded with skepticism, but also excitement for the scoop. "I'm saying the version of events he wants to impose is false. I'm saying I'm another victim of his manipulation. And I'm saying the truth about what happened to Claudia doesn't reside in the resentments of a divorce, but in the offices of a corrupt construction company. I didn't kill that girl, and I'm not going to allow them to use my pain to hide who did or why." I stood up. The theater was over. I had planted the seed. "I'm leaving you the letter, and these documents. Do with them what you think appropriate. I, now, am going to turn myself in to the police. But I'll do it after my version has been made public, so no one can twist my words or silence me." Without giving them time for more questions, I turned around and left the cafe. Sergio followed me. "Elena, that was incredible and reckless." "I needed it to be like that," I said, trembling inside now that the adrenaline was starting to drop. "Now take me to the station." In Sergio's car, the outside world passed like a silent movie. My phone, Anna's phone, started vibrating incessantly. Push notifications, alerts, the media were already publishing the scoop. Ex-wife of Mauricio Castillo dismantles his confession, accuses her ex-husband, and of blackmail and points to a corrupt scheme behind Claudia Marquez's death. I had lit the fuse. Now I had to face the explosion. When we arrived at the central station, there were already several journalist cars parked outside. Sergio said goodbye with a silent but eloquent handshake. I got out of the car and walked toward the entrance, with my head held high, feeling the weight of stairs and the buzz of cameras. Inside, a young officer looked at me with curiosity. "Ma'am, I'm Elena Hernandez. I believe you're looking for me." The officer paled and immediately called his superior. In less than a minute, Chief Inspector David Vargas appeared. His face was a mask of professionalism, but his eyes betrayed contained fury. "Mrs. Hernandez, you've made a very serious mistake," he said, without preamble. "I've told the truth, Inspector, something that seems to bother you a lot," I replied without looking away. "The truth is told in an office, with a lawyer, not in a media spectacle. Come with me." He led me to a cold, bare interrogation room, the same one I supposed where Mauricio would be. I sat in the plastic chair, facing the empty table. Vargas sat across from me. "Your press conference has put the investigation at risk," he began. "Or has it redirected it to where it should have gone from the beginning?" I replied. "Have you investigated Inmobiliaria Norte, Mauricio's partners, or have you only focused on the marital drama he served you on a platter?" Vargas clenched his jaw. "You can't come here to give me lessons on how to do my job." "Someone has to," I said with a coldness that surprised me. "I have a letter from Mauricio, where he confesses to a crime he didn't commit as he says, and blackmails me, and I have information suggesting the victim was investigating him. Are you going to ignore that?" At that moment the door opened. An officer handed a file to Vargas. He opened it, read it quickly, and his expression changed. The fury gave way to a deep, almost comic perplexity. Then he looked at me. "It seems media pressure works," he said, with a hint of bitterness. "I've just received an order from the judge. At the request of the economic police, the investigation is being expanded to Inmobiliaria Norte, and its directors will be summoned to testify. And based on the letter," he paused, measuring his words, "the blackmail accusations against Mauricio Castillo will be added to his case." I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just nodded slowly. I had won a battle, but the war was far from over. "Can I see my children?" I asked. Vargas sighed. "They're in a room waiting. They've been following the news." He led me down a hallway to a room with a table and some chairs. When he opened the door, two pale and haggard faces turned toward me, Daniel and Laura. They were sitting together as if seeking comfort in each other. On the table, a tablet showed a news headline with my photo. They jumped up. The expression on their faces was indecipherable, a mixture of fear, disbelief, shame, and a hint of hope. "Mom," Laura murmured, her voice broken, "is everything you said true?" I looked at both of them, at my children, at the creatures for whom I had played my last card, risking going to jail for obstructing an investigation, just to protect them from an even more painful truth. "Not everything," I said softly, approaching. "Not everything." They looked at me, confused. "The blackmail part, the letter part, is true," I continued, containing tears. "He threatened me. He said if I didn't help him, he would say my oversight with the medication had been an attempt, and that you knew it and did nothing." Laura turned even paler. Daniel took a step back, as if I had hit him. You did try?" Daniel asked, his voice a thread, loaded with new horror. "There was a moment, months ago, when the pain was so great that I thought about it. Just a moment. It was a mistake, a scare, and I overcame it. Only I knew, or so I thought. He used it to threaten me, to try to make me lie for him." I showed them the letter, the page where the threat was written. Laura read it and broke down crying, covering her mouth with her hands. Daniel took it, read it, and his face decomposed into a grimace of pain and rage. "I entered your room that night," Laura suddenly sobbed. "I saw you with the bottle, and with an expression, I didn't know what to think. I told Danny, and I told Dad." Daniel cut in, his voice loaded with infinite bitterness. "On one of his visits, I was so angry at you, so frustrated, I blurted it out, as a reproach, to make him see how bad we were." He put his hands to his face. "My God, I gave him the weapon. I gave it to him." He fell to his knees on the floor, shaken by brutal sobs, of a man who discovers he has been the instrument of his own destruction. Laura knelt beside him, hugging him, crying with him. I stood there, observing the scene. The secret was out. Mauricio's lie was dissolving, replaced by a much more painful and complex truth. It hadn't been a complete bluff. He had exploited a real weakness, a fracture he himself had created, and that we, in our misery, had fed. I knelt in front of them. I didn't touch them. I just spoke to them. "What happened on the road? I understand you. I failed you. I plunged you into my sadness until you couldn't take it anymore. And I'm sorry. I'm sorrier than I can ever say." They raised their heads, looking at me with eyes flooded with tears and regret. "But what he did," I continued, my voice firm, "using your confusion, your pain, to manipulate us and try to evade justice, that's unforgivable. And we can't let him win. We have to face this, together. This time, for real." Daniel extended a trembling hand and grabbed mine. His skin was cold. Laura did the same, pressing our intertwined fingers with desperate strength. "I'm sorry, Mom," Daniel cried, his voice barely audible. "We abandoned you. We failed you." "And I failed you," I whispered, finally letting the tears flow freely. "But we're here, and this is our truth. Ugly, complicated, and broken, but it's ours, not his." We hugged there, on the cold floor of the station, the three of us. It wasn't a happy reconciliation hug, it was a survivor's hug, of castaways clinging to the remains of the same ship they had sunk. The road ahead would be long. The relationship with my children was shattered and would need slow and painful reconstruction. Our family name would be forever stained by scandal. Mauricio would fight tooth and nail, and the truth about Claudia would take time to come to light. But in that moment, on the floor, embraced, we had done the most important thing. We had stopped believing his lies, and we had begun for the first time to accept ours. The door to the room opened. Inspector Vargas poked his head in. His expression had softened. "Mrs. Hernandez," he said, "your lawyer is here, and there's a visitor for you." It's Claudia Marquez's mother. She insists on speaking with you. Should I receive her?" The world stopped again. Claudia's mother, the woman whose pain eclipsed mine completely. What could I tell her? What could she want from me? I looked at my children. Their faces, marked by fear and expectation, gave me courage. I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said, standing up, straightening my wrinkled clothes with hands that didn't tremble. "Receive her." The inspector nodded and withdrew. I breathed deeply, preparing to face the most painful mirror of all, the pain of others that my family had helped cause. The war wasn't over, but the battle for my soul, and that of my children, had just begun. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt we were going to fight on the same side. The woman who entered the room was small, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, and wore a black coat too big for her frail frame. But it was her gaze that stopped my heart. She had Claudia's eyes. The same big, lively eyes I had seen in newspaper photos, but in hers there was no trace of life left, only pain so deep and ancient, it seemed to have existed forever. A pain that, I knew instantly, my own pain was just a pale reflection of. She stopped in front of the table. Without sitting down, she looked at the three of us, kneeling on the floor, our faces marked by tears and confession. There was no anger in her face. There was no accusation, only devastating curiosity and infinite fatigue. "Mrs. Hernandez," her voice said, soft as ash, "I'm Isabel Marquez." I stood up with difficulty, my legs numb. Daniel and Laura also stood, staying slightly behind me, like children seeking refuge. "Mrs. Marquez," I began, my voice broken by emotion, "I don't know what to say to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about your daughter, about everything." She nodded slowly, as if my words were something she had already heard 1,000 times and that no longer had meaning. "I've been outside," she said, pointing vaguely toward the door. I heard what you said to the journalists. About my Claudia, about what she was investigating." I held my breath. Was she coming to reproach me for having stained her daughter's name? Associating her with a shady scheme? To yell at me that her daughter wasn't a busybody, but a victim? "My Claudia," she continued, and for the first time her voice broke a little, "was always like that. As a little girl, if she saw an injustice in the school playground, she was the first to stand up. She couldn't stand the idea of the strong abusing the weak." A sad, ghostly smile touched her lips. "Her father and I always told her, 'Claudia, the world is full of injustices, you can't fight them all.' And she would answer us, 'But I can fight this one, and the next one.'" Tears silently slid down her cheeks. She did nothing to wipe them away. When she started university, she changed. She became more serious, more determined. She said journalism wasn't just telling stories, it was giving voice to those who didn't have one. She started coming home with folders full of papers, talking about corruption, schemes. She paused, breathing deeply. The last few months, she was obsessed with a name, Inmobiliaria Norte, and with an architect, Castillo. The name sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. Daniel behind me stifled a gasp. "I told her to be careful," Isabel whispered, and now her voice was loaded with terrible anguish. "I begged her to stay away, that it was too dangerous. But she told me, 'Mom, if I don't do it, who will?'" She fell silent, and the silence she left was more eloquent than any scream. The weight of guilt, of powerlessness, was almost tangible. The morning she disappeared, she continued, struggling to form the words. She sent me a message. It said, "Mom, I think I have something big. See you later for dinner, and I'll tell you." That was the last time I heard from her. She brought a trembling hand to her mouth, stifling a sob. I couldn't breathe. I could see her, Claudia, young, brilliant, full of courage and conviction, walking into the nest of vipers that was Mauricio's world, believing that truth was sufficient shield. Isabel looked directly into my eyes, and for an instant, I saw in hers not the victim's mother, but another mother, A woman who, like me, had loved, had feared, had tried to protect. "You're also a mother," she said, as if she had read my thought. "You know, the fear, the constant fear that the world will hurt them, that one day they'll go out the door and not come back." I nodded, unable to speak, tears flowing freely now. Daniel squeezed my hand. Laura moved closer, resting her head on my shoulder. "I failed my daughter," Isabel confessed, her voice barely a thread. "I couldn't protect her. But you," her gaze settled on Daniel and Laura, "you still have the chance. You still have your children." Her words pierced me. She, who had lost everything, was offering me perspective, a glimpse of light in the darkness of my own guilt. "This investigation, this truth you've uncovered," she continued, with a hint of strength in her voice, "is all I have left of her. It's the story she wanted to tell. Don't let them bury it. Don't let them turn it into something else, for her, and for all those who have no voice." She came a step closer, not to hug me, not to comfort me, to hand me a responsibility. "Fight," she told us, looking at the three of us. "Fight for the truth. Together, it's the only thing that in the end matters." And with that, she turned around and left the room with the same silent dignity with which she had entered. She left, leaving behind a silence loaded with new, painful but purifying meaning. We stood there, the three of us, absorbing the impact of her words. The selfishness of our family drama paled before the magnitude of Isabel's loss. Our wounds, however deep they were, could begin to heal. Hers never. Daniel was the first to break the silence. "She's right," he said, his voice hoarse but clear. "We can't change what happened, or what we did, but we can choose what we do now." Laura nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "For that girl, for Claudia, and for us." I looked at both of them, at my children, and saw for the first time not the scared children who had abandoned me on a road, but fragile but determined adults who had looked into the abyss and had decided to step back to take a running start. Inspector Vargas came back in, this time with my lawyer. Justice's routine was imposed. Statements, procedures, the coldness of the law. But I was no longer afraid, because now I had a purpose that went beyond my own redemption. Hours later, we left the station. The press pounced, but this time we didn't run. We stopped on the steps, under Madrid's pale winter sun. Daniel stood to my left, Laura to my right, and together, without saying a word, we faced the deluge of flashes and questions. We weren't a perfect family. We were a broken family, patched up, with fractures that might never heal completely. But we were a family, and we were together, and we were ready to fight. The moral, if there is one in this tangle of pain, isn't that love conquers all, because sometimes love isn't enough. The moral is that truth, however hard and ugly it may be, is the only ground on which something worthwhile can be rebuilt, and that sometimes, to find our own light, we must have the courage to look directly at others' pain and let its reflection illuminate us. The road would be long, but for the first time in 1,651 kilometers, I knew I wouldn't travel it alone.